The Serbian campaign of World War I was fought from late July 1914, when Austria-Hungary invaded the Kingdom of Serbia at the outset of World War I, until the war's conclusion in November 1918. The front ranged from the Danube River to southern Macedonia and back north again, and it drew in forces from almost all the combatants of the war. The Serbian army declined severely towards the end of the war, falling from about 420,000 at its peak to about 100,000 at the moment of liberation. The Kingdom of Serbia lost more than 1,100,000 inhabitants during the war, which represented over 27% of its overall population and 60% of its male population, according to estimates prepared by the Yugoslav government in 1924. Serbia lost 265,164 soldiers, or 25% of all mobilized people. By comparison, France lost 16.8%, Germany 15.4%, Russia 11.5%, and Italy 10.3%. Background: Austria-Hungary precipitated the Bosnian crisis of 1908–09 by annexing the former Ottoman territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which it had occupied since 1878. This angered the Kingdom of Serbia and its patron, the Pan-Slavic and Orthodox Russian Empire. Russian political maneuvering in the region destabilized peace accords that were already unraveling in what was known as the Powder Keg of Europe. In 1912 and 1913, the First Balkan War was fought between the Balkan League of Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, and Montenegro and the fracturing Ottoman Empire. The resulting Treaty of London further shrank the Ottoman Empire by creating an independent Principality of Albania and enlarging the territorial holdings of Bulgaria, Serbia, Montenegro, and Greece. When Bulgaria attacked both Serbia and Greece on 16 June 1913, it lost most of its Macedonian region to those countries, and additionally the southern Dobrija region to Romania and Adrianople to Turkey in the 33-day Second Balkan War, which further destabilized the region. On 28 June 1914, Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb student and member of a multi-ethnic organization of national revolutionaries called Young Bosnia, assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, in Sarajevo, Bosnia. The political objective of the assassination was to break off the Austro-Hungarian southern provinces mainly populated by Slavs from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and it triggered a chain of events that embroiled Russia and the major European powers. This began a period of diplomatic maneuvering among Austria-Hungary, Germany, Russia, France, and Britain called the July Crisis, wanting to end Serbian interference in Bosnia and the Balkans once and for all. Austria-Hungary delivered the July Ultimatum to Serbia, a series of 10 demands intentionally made unacceptable in order to provoke a war with Serbia. When Serbia agreed to only 8 of the 10 demands, Austria-Hungary declared war on 28 July 1914. The dispute between Austria-Hungary and Serbia escalated into what is now known as World War I, and drew in Russia, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom due to a series of interconnecting alliance agreements. Within a week, Austria-Hungary had to face a war with Russia, Serbia's patron, which had the largest army in the world at the time. The result was that Serbia became a subsidiary front in the massive fight that started to unfold along Austria-Hungary's border with Russia. Serbia had an experienced experienced army, but it was also exhausted from the conflicts of the Balkan Wars and poorly equipped, which led the Austro-Hungarians to believe that it would fall in less than a month. Serbia's strategy was to hold on as long as it could and hope the Russians could defeat the main Austro-Hungarian army, with or without the help of other allies. Serbia constantly had to worry about its hostile neighbor to the east, Bulgaria, with which it had fought several wars, most recently in the Second Balkan War of 1913. Military forces. Austro-Hungarian. The standing peacetime Austro-Hungarian army had some 36,000 officers and non-commissioned officers and 414,000 soldiers. During the mobilization, this number was increased to a total of 3,350,000 men of all ranks. The operational army had over 1,420,000 men, and a further 600,000 were allocated to support and logistic units, while the rest, around 1,350,000, were reserve troops available for replacing losses in the formation of new units. This vast manpower allowed the Austro-Hungarian army to replace its losses regularly and keep units at the formation strength. According to some sources, during 1914 there were on average 150,000 men per month sent to replace the losses in the field army during 1914. During 1915, these numbers rose to 200,000 per month. According to the official Austrian documents, in the period from September until the end of December 1914, some 160,000 replacement troops were sent to the Balkan theatre of war, as well as 82,000 reinforcements as part of newly formed units. The pre-war Austro-Hungarian plan for invasion of Serbia envisioned the concentration of three armies on the western and northern borders of Serbia, with the main goal of enveloping and destroying the bulk of the Serbian army. However, with the beginning of the Russian general mobilization, Army Oberkommando decided to move the Second Army to Galicia to counter Russian forces. Due to the congestion of railroad lines towards Galicia, the Second Army could only start its departure on the 18th of August, which allowed AOK to assign some units of the Second Army to take part in operations in Serbia before the date. Eventually, AOK allowed General Oskar Pošarek to deploy a significant part of the Second Army in fighting against Serbia, which caused a delay of transport of these troops to the Russian front for more than a week. Furthermore, the Austro-Hungarian defeat suffered during the first invasion of Serbia forced AOK to transfer 2 divisions from the Second Army permanently to Pošarek's force. By the 12th of August, Austria-Hungary had amassed over 500,000 soldiers on Serbian frontiers, including some 380,000 operational troops. With the departure of the major part of the Second Army to the Russian front, this number fell to some 285,000 of operational troops, including garrisons. Apart from land forces, Austria-Hungary also deployed its Danube River flotilla of 6 monitors and 6 patrol boats. Many Austro-Hungarian soldiers were not of good quality. About 1/4 of them were illiterate, and most of the conscripts from the empire's subject nationalities did not speak or understand German or Hungarian. In addition to this, most of the soldiers, ethnic Czechs, Slovaks, Poles, Romanians and South Slavs, had linguistic and cultural links with Austro-Hungarian Empire's various enemies. Serbian. The Serbian military command issued orders for the mobilization of its armed forces on the 25th of July, and the mobilization began the following day, the 26th of July. By the 30th of July, the mobilization was completed and the troops began to be deployed according to the war plan. Deployments were completed by the 9th of August when all of the troops had arrived at the designated strategic positions. During mobilization, Serbia raised approximately 450,000 men of three age-defined classes of bands called POSIV, which comprised all able-bodied men between 21 and 45 years of age. The operational army consisted of 11½ infantry and 1 cavalry division. Aged men of the 3rd band were organized in 15 infantry regiments with some 45–50,000 men designated for use in rear and line of communications duties. However, some of them were by necessity used as part of operational army as well, bringing its strength up to around 250,000 men. Serbia was in a much more disadvantageous position when compared with Austria-Hungary with regard to human reserves and replacement troops, as its only source of replacements were new recruits reaching the age of military enlistment. The maximum annual number was theoretically around 60,000, which was insufficient to replace the losses of more than 132,000 sustained during operations from August to December 1914. This shortage of manpower forced the Serbian army to recruit under and over-aged men to make up for losses in the opening phase of the war. Because of the poor financial state of the Serbian economy and losses in the recent Balkan Wars, the Serbian army lacked much of the modern weaponry and equipment necessary to engage in combat with the larger and wealthier adversaries. There were only 180,000 modern rifles available for the operational army, which meant that the Serbian army lacked between 1/4 to 1/3 of the rifles necessary to fully equip even the frontline units, let alone reserve forces. Although Serbia tried to remedy this deficit by ordering 120,000 rifles from Russia in 1914, the weapons did not begin to arrive until the second half of August. Only 1st Band troops had complete uniforms, 2nd Band troops had only greatcoats and caps, while 3rd Band had no uniforms at all and were reduced to wearing the civilian clothes. The Serbian troops did not have service-issued boots at all, and a vast majority of them wore everyday footwear made of pigskin called opanak. Ammunition reserves were also insufficient for sustained field operations, as most of it had been used in the 1912–13 Balkan Wars. Artillery ammunition was sparse and only amounted to several hundred shells per unit, because Serbia lacked a significant domestic military-industrial complex. Its army was completely dependent on imports of ammunition and arms from France and Russia, which themselves were chronically short of supplies. The inevitable shortages of ammunition, which later would include a complete lack of artillery ammunition, reached the peak during decisive moments of the Austro-Hungarian invasion. Comparative strength. These figures detail the number of all Austro-Hungarian troops concentrated on the southern theatre of war at the beginning of August 1916 and the resources of the entire Serbian army. Serbia's ally Montenegro mustered an army of some 35–40,000 men, with only 14 modern quick-firing field guns, 62 machine guns and some 51 older pieces. Unlike the Austro-Hungarian and the Serbian armies, the Montenegrin army was a militia type without proper military training or a career officers' corps. Note, according to our military formation, average war strength of following units was: battalion, 1,000, battery, squadron, engineer companies. Strength of corresponding Serbian units was similar: battalion, 11–16, battery, squadron, engineer company. Heavy artillery order of battle of the Serbian army. First Army, commanded by General Peter Bojovic, Chief of Staff Colonel Bozid Arterzic. Cavalry Division, 4 regiments, Colonel Branko Jovanovic. Timok I Division, 4 regiments, General Vladimir Kondik. Timok II Division, 3 regiments, Morava II Division, 3 regiments, Danube II Division, 6 regiments, Army Artillery, Colonel Božidar Rekovic. 2nd Army, commanded by General Stepa Stepanovic. Chief of Staff Colonel Vojislav Ivanovic. Miralva I Division, Colonel Ilya Gokovic. 4 regiments, Combined I Division, General Mihailo Rasic. 4 regiments, Regiment Commanders Svetoslav Miskovic, XX and Dragilja Buzimir-Kovic. Sumadia I Division, 4 regiments, Danube I Division, Colonel Milivoje Angelkovic. 4 regiments, Army Artillery, Colonel Vojislav Milojevic. 3rd Army, commanded by General Pavla Jurisic Sturm. Chief of Staff Colonel Dusan Persic. Drina I Division, 4 regiments, Drina II Division, 4 regiments, Regiment Commanders Milonja Jelizicevic, XX and Exobranovac. Detachment 1 Regiment, 2 battalions, Jadachetnik Detachment. Army Artillery, Colonel Milos Mihailovic. Uzis Army, commanded by General Milos Bozanovic. Sumadia II Division, Colonel Dragutin Milutinovic. 4 regiments, Uzis Brigade, Colonel Ivan Pavlovich. 2 regiments, Chetnik Detachments, Lim, Zlatibor, Gornjag Detachments. Army Artillery. Order of Battle of the Austrian-Hungarian Army. August 1914, Balkan Force 5th Army, commanded by Liborius Ritter von Frank. 9. Infantry Division, 21. Landwehr Infantry Division 36. Infantry Division 42. Honved Infantry Division 13. Infantry Brigade 11. Mountain Brigade, 104. Landsturm Infantry Brigade 13. March Brigade 6th Army, commanded by Oskar Posharek. 1. Infantry Division 48. Infantry Division 18. Infantry Division 47. Infantry Division 40. Honved Infantry Division, 109. Landsturm Infantry Brigade Banat Rayon and Garrisons 107. Landsturm Infantry Brigade. Sundry units of infantry, cavalry and artillery, parts of the 2nd Army, commanded by Eduard von Boehmer Molly. 17. Infantry Division 34, Infantry Division 31, Infantry Division 32, Infantry Division 29, Infantry Division 7, Infantry Division 23. Infantry Division 10, Cavalry Division 4, March Brigade 7, March Brigade 8, March Brigade. 1914. The Serbian campaign started on the 28th of July 1914, when Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia and her artillery shelled Belgrade the following day. On August 12, the Austro-Hungarian armies crossed the border, the Drina River. Initially, 3 out of 6 Austro-Hungarian armies were mobilized at the Serbian frontier, but due to Russian intervention, the Second Army was redirected east to the Galician theatre. However, since the railroad lines leading to Galicia were busy with transport of other troops, the Second Army could only start its departure northward on the 18th of August. In order to make use of the temporary presence of the Second Army, AOK allowed parts of it to be used in Serbian campaign until the date. Eventually, AOK directed significant parts of the Second Army to assist General Posharek's main force and postponed their transportation to Russia until the last week of August. Defeat suffered in the first invasion of Serbia eventually forced AOK to transfer 2 divisions from Second Army to Posharek's army permanently. The VN-Vi Austro-Hungarian armies had about 270,000 men who were much better equipped than the Serbs. Overall, Austro-Hungarian command was in the hands of General Posharek. The Austro-Hungarian Empire had the third third largest population in Europe in 1914, behind Russia and Germany, giving it an enormous manpower advantage. Battle of Cer. Pošarek rushed the attack against Serbia from northern Bosnia with his Fifth Army, supported by elements of the Second Army from Semir. The Second Army was due to be transported to Galicia to face the Russians at the end of August, but he made use of it until then. The Sixth was positioning itself in southern Bosnia and was not yet able to commence offensive operations. Pošarek's desire was to win a victory before Emperor Franz Joseph's birthday and to knock Serbia out as soon as possible. Thus he made two grave strategic errors by attacking with only just over half of his strength and attacking hilly western Serbia instead of the open plains of the north. This move surprised Marshal Putnik, who expected attack from the north and initially believed that it was a feint. Once it became clear that it was the main thrust, the strong Second Army under the command of General Stepa Stepanović was sent to join the small Third Army under Pavle Đurić's term already facing the Austro-Hungarians and expel the invaders. After a fierce four-day battle, the Austro-Hungarians were forced to retreat, marking the first Allied victory of the war over the Central Powers led by Germany and Austria-Hungary. Casualties numbered 23,000 for the Austro-Hungarians and 16,500 for the Serbs. Battle of Drina. Under pressure from its allies, Serbia conducted a limited offensive across the Sava River into the Austro-Hungarian region of Semir with its Serbian First Army. The main operational goal was to delay the transport of the Austro-Hungarian Second Army to the Russian front. The objective was shown to be futile as forces of the Second Army were already in transport. Meanwhile, the Timok Division 1 of the Serbian Second Army suffered a heavy defeat in a diversionary crossing, suffering around 6,000 casualties while inflicting only 2,000. With most of his forces in Bosnia, Pošarek decided that the best way to stop the Serbian offensive was to launch another invasion into Serbia to force the Serbs to recall their troops to defend the much smaller homeland. The 7th of September brought a renewed Austro-Hungarian attack from the west, across the river Drina, this time with both the Fifth Army in Makva and the Sixth further south. The initial attack by the Fifth Army was repelled by the Serbian Second Army, with 4,000 Austro-Hungarian casualties, but the stronger Sixth Army managed to surprise the Serbian Third Army and gain a foothold. After some units from the Serbian Second Army were sent to bolster the Third, the Austro-Hungarian Fifth Army also managed to establish a bridgehead with a renewed attack. At the time, Marshal Putnik withdrew the First Army from Semir and used it to deliver a fierce counterattack against the Sixth Army that initially went well, but finally bogged down in a bloody four-day fight for a peak of the Jagodnja mountain called Makov Kamen, in which both sides suffered horrendous losses in successive frontal attacks and counterattacks. Two Serbian divisions lost around 11,000 men, while Austro-Hungarian losses were probably comparable. Marshal Putnik ordered a retreat into the surrounding hills, and the front settled into a month and a half of trench warfare, which was highly unfavorable to the Serbs, who had little in the way of an industrial base and were deficient in heavy artillery, ammunition stocks, shell production, and footwear, since the vast majority of infantry wore the traditional opanaks, while the Austro-Hungarians had waterproof leather boots. Most of the war material was supplied by the Allies, who were short of such materials themselves. In such a situation, Serbian artillery quickly became almost silent, while the Austro-Hungarians steadily increased the fire. Serbian casualties reached 100 soldiers a day from all causes in some divisions. During the first weeks of trench warfare, the Serbian Uzis Army and the Montenegrin Sanjak Army conducted an abortive offensive into Bosnia. In addition, both sides conducted a few local attacks, most of which which were soundly defeated. In one such attack, the Serbian army used mine warfare for the first time. The combined division dug tunnels beneath the Austro-Hungarian trenches, planted mines and set them off just before an infantry charge. Battle of Kolubara. Having thus weakened the Serbian army, the Austro-Hungarian army launched another massive attack on the 5th of November. The Serbs withdrew step by step, offering strong resistance at the Kolubara River, but to no avail, due to the lack of artillery ammunition. It was at the time that General Zivajin Misic was made commander of the battered First Army, replacing the wounded Peter Bojovic. He insisted on a deep withdrawal in order to give the troops some much-needed rest and to shorten the front. Marshal Butnik finally relented, but the consequence was the abandonment of the capital city of Belgrade. After suffering heavy losses, the Austro-Hungarian army entered the city on the 2nd of December. This action led Pošiorek to move the whole Fifth Army into the Belgrade area and use it to crush the Serbian right flank. This, however, left the 6th alone for a few days to face the whole Serbian army. At this point, artillery ammunition finally arrived from France and Greece. In addition, some replacements were sent to the units, and Marshal Putnik correctly sensed that the Austro-Hungarian forces were dangerously overstretched and weakened in the previous offensives, so he ordered a full-scale counterattack with the entire Serbian army on the 3rd of December against the 6th Army. The 5th hurried its flanking maneuver, but it was already too late, with the 6th Army broken. The 2nd and 3rd Serbian armies overwhelmed the 5th. Finally, Pošiorek lost his nerve and ordered yet another retreat back across the rivers into Austria-Hungary's territory. The Serbian army recaptured Belgrade on the 15th of December. The first phase of the war against Serbia had ended with no change in the border, but casualties were enormous compared to earlier wars, albeit comparable to other campaigns of World War I. The Serbian army suffered 170,000 men killed, wounded, captured or missing. Austro-Hungarian losses were approaching 215,000 men killed, wounded or missing. Austro-Hungarian General Pošiorek was removed from command and replaced by Archduke Eugen of Austria. On the Serbian side, a deadly typhus epidemic killed hundreds of thousands of Serb civilians during the winter. After the Battle of Kolubara, the Serbian parliament adopted the Nis Declaration on the War Goals of Serbia. Convinced that the entire Serbian nation is determined to persevere in the holy struggle for the defense of their homesteads and the freedom, the government of the kingdom considers that, in these fateful times, its main and only task is to ensure the successful completion of this great warfare, which, at the moment when it started, also became a struggle for the liberation and unification of all our unliberated Serbian, Croatian and Slovenian brothers. The great success which is to crown this warfare will make up for the extremely bloody sacrifices which this generation of Serbs is making.